Ah, democracy, that beautiful system where we pretend our vote matters. But amidst the political jargon and promises of a brighter future, there's a darker, funnier side to South African elections that often gets overlooked. So, buckle up as we take you on a wild ride through the underbelly of South African democracy, where the lines between comedy and chaos get blurrier than a politician's promises after 5 years in office. We'll be your guide through the strange and hilarious world of South African elections, where the only thing more predictable than the ANC winning is the unexpected. Let's be honest, folks. South Africa's history with elections is about as smooth as a ride in a taxi with no shocks, on a road paved with potholes, driven by someone who learned to drive from playing Grand Theft Auto. For decades, the majority of South Africans were excluded from the democratic process, thanks to a little something called apartheid. Then, in 1994, South Africa held its first truly democratic elections, a moment of joyous celebration and a giant leap for a nation emerging from the shadows of oppression. But, and there's always a but, isn't there? It seems that old habits die hard. From allegations of vote rigging to political parties with more personalities than a clown car, the South African political landscape has never been short of entertainment. So if you thought your country's elections were a circus, hold on to your hats because things are about to get wild. Now, you might think that with the advent of democracy, things would have cleaned up a bit in the electoral process. You'd be wrong. We've had reports of people trying to vote using their pet's ID, which, let's be honest, is only slightly less qualified than some of the candidates we've seen. Then there was the time a ballot box was found in the back of a bakkie, speeding away from a polling station. And who can forget the classic case of the ghost voters, those mysterious citizens who only seem to appear on the electoral roll every 5 years? It's enough to make you believe in the supernatural. So the next time you hear someone complaining about long lines at the polls, just remind them, it could be worse. They could be competing with a pack of chihuahuas for a voting booth. Now let's talk about the wonderful world of election laws, specifically the ones that make you scratch your head and wonder if someone spiked the rooibos tea at Parliament. For instance, did you know that it's illegal to campaign within 100 meters of a polling station? Which, in a country where the average person can spot a Boer Wars roll from a kilometer away, seems a bit excessive, don't you think? And don't even get me started on the dress code for election observers. Apparently wearing a t-shirt with your favorite political party's logo is a big no-no, but hey, at least you can still rock that leopard print Speedo as long as it's not affiliated with any political party, of course. But the real kicker is the law that states that any animal found within 50 meters of a polling station can be confiscated and held until after the election. It's enough to make you wonder if the people who wrote these laws were trying to make a mockery of the system or if they just had a really weird sense of humor. So if you're planning on participating in the next election, you might want to brush up on your law books, or better yet, just hire a lawyer who specializes in the absurd. Now, when you think of a polling station, you probably picture a school gym, a community hall, or maybe even a church basement. But in South Africa, we like to keep things interesting. So, we've transformed some rather unconventional locations into temporary temples of democracy. We've had polling stations in shebeens, those informal pubs that are as much a part of South African culture as braais and load shedding. Because nothing says exercise your civic duty like a cold beer and a plate of pap and vlees. Then there was the time a polling station was set up in a shipping container, which, let's be honest, is probably more spacious than some of the RDP houses out there. But the award for the most unusual polling station has to go to the one that was located in a treehouse. So, the next time you're asked to vote in a strange location, just remember, it could be worse. You could be casting your ballot in a porta potty. Now let's talk about the elephant in the room, or should I say the rhino in the crawl. Money. Glorious money. Because in South African politics, like in a game of Monopoly with your family, it's not about winning, it's about bankrupting your opponents. We've got politicians throwing around more cash than a sugar daddy at a spa. And where's all this money coming from, you ask? Well, that's a question for the Hawks, my friend. But let's just say, some of these campaign donations are about as transparent as a brick wall. We've got tenders being awarded to companies with ties to politicians, government contracts disappearing faster than a plate of Coke Sisters at a family reunion, and let's not forget the good old-fashioned bribery and corruption. So the next time you see a politician promising you the world, just remember, there's no such thing as a free lunch, especially in South African politics. Because in this Game of Thrones, it's the one with the deepest pockets who usually ends up on top, while the rest of us are left wondering where all the money went. Ah, the media, the fourth estate, the watchdog of democracy, or as we like to call it in South Africa, the source of endless memes and questionable headlines. Because let's face it, when it comes to covering elections, the South African media takes the cake, or should I say, the milk turt. We've got newspapers with more retractions than a mechanic's workshop, news channels that report rumors faster than a gossiping auntie at a wedding, and social media platforms that are basically a breeding ground for fake news and political propaganda. And let's not forget the photos. Oh, the photos. Politicians awkwardly posing with babies, politicians trying to look relatable while eating bunny chow, politicians falling asleep during important meetings. It's a goldmine of comedic material. So, the next time you're bombarded with election news, take it all with a pinch of salt, a dash of humor, and a healthy dose of skepticism. Don't step on a crack, you'll break your ballot election superstitions. Now, South Africans are a superstitious bunch. We've got muti for everything from bad luck to finding a parking spot. So it's no surprise that we've got a few superstitions when it comes to elections. Some people believe that you shouldn't wear red on election day because it's bad luck. Others say that if you see a black cat on your way to the polling station, you should turn around and go home. But the most bizarre superstition is the one that says you shouldn't eat chicken on election day because it will make you vote for the wrong party. So if you're feeling superstitious on election day, just remember to wear your lucky underwear, avoid any black cats, and whatever you do, don't drop your ballot paper. Now, let's talk about the stars of the show, the main attraction, the reason we're all here, the candidates. And in South Africa, we've had some real doozies. We've had beauty queens promising world peace, if they could just find their missing swimsuit competition sash. We've had self-proclaimed prophets claiming to have direct lines to the big man upstairs, and that he told them to run for office. And then there was the guy who campaigned on a platform of free beer for everyone. He didn't win, but he sure did get a lot of votes. It seems that in South Africa, anyone can run for office, and I do mean anyone. So, if you've ever dreamed of seeing your name on a ballot paper, now's the time to throw your hat in the ring. The votes are cast, the results are in, and the country breathes a collective sigh of relief. Or do they? Because the aftermath of an election can be just as chaotic and hilarious as the campaign itself. We've got sore losers crying foul, claiming the election was rigged, demanding recounts, and threatening to move to Australia. Spoiler alert, they never actually moved to Australia. Then there are the victory parties, which are basically just an excuse to braai, drink, and dance in the streets. But perhaps the most entertaining part of the post-election period is watching the newly elected officials try to figure out what they're actually supposed to do. So, if you're ever feeling down about the state of the world, just remember, at least you're not the one who has to clean up the mess after an election. So, what does the future hold for South African elections? Well, if history is anything to go by, it's going to be a wild ride. We can expect more scandals, more shenanigans, and more candidates who make you question the very fabric of reality. But hey, at least we'll be entertained, right? Because in South Africa, one thing's for sure. Even when the world feels like it's falling apart, we can always count on our politicians to provide us with a good laugh. So buckle up, folks, and get ready for the next election. It's going to be a doozy. So there you have it, a glimpse into the weird, wild, and often hilarious world of South African elections. Remember, your vote is your voice, even if it sometimes feels like you're screaming into the void. But hey, at least we can find humor in the absurdity of it all, so go out there, cast your vote, and remember to laugh a little along the way. It's the South African way.